Kim Dokja is nobody. He is a 28-year-old office worker in Seoul who takes the same subway route every morning, sits in the same seat when he can get it, and reads the same web novel on his phone while the city blurs past the window. His co-workers barely register him. His life barely registers him. But there is one single thing that has followed him across a decade of quiet, unremarkable days. A web novel called 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. He has read it from the very first chapter to the very last. He is, in fact, the only reader who ever did. That's it. That is the entire shape of his life. A man, a phone, a story that no one else cared about. Then the story begins. It does not ease in. It does not give warnings. One moment, Kim Dokja is on the subway, novel open, the city rumbling beneath him, and the next moment, a message detonates across every screen in the world. A system notification, a global announcement delivered with the cold precision of a god who has decided to stop waiting. Scenarios are beginning. The rules of human existence are being rewritten by something vast and indifferent, something that has decided Earth is a stage, and humanity is going to perform whether it wants to or not. Constellations, ancient, mythological, cosmic beings with names pulled from every story mankind has ever told, are watching. They are always watching. And they are hungry for entertainment. The subway car becomes a killing ground in minutes. Monsters materialize, people scream, people run, people die with the particular brutality of a world that has suddenly stopped pretending to be safe. Kim Dokja does not run. He does not scream. He reads the notification carefully, cross-references it against 10 years of accumulated knowledge, and begins to move with the quiet efficiency of someone who already knows exactly what comes next. Because he does. He has read this. Every scenario, every monster, every hidden rule buried in footnotes the casual readers skipped, and only the obsessive, the lonely, the devoted ever found. 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse was not just a story. It was a blueprint, and Kim Dokja might be the only human being alive who holds the complete version in his head. He survives the subway. He survives the first scenario. He survives everything that should kill him, and he does it not with superhuman strength or a mythological bloodline or a legendary weapon gifted by fate. He does it with information, with foresight, with the terrible advantage of a man who has read the ending. He finds others. Han Soo-young, brilliant and cutting and furious in the way only someone who has had to fight for every inch of themselves can be furious. Jung Hee-won, whose blade work is matched only by her clarity of purpose. Lee Hyun-sung, steady and strong and quietly decent in a world that is burning its decent people first. Lee Ji-hee, reckless in the beautiful way of someone who has not yet learned what loss costs. And Yoo Jung-hyuk, the protagonist, the actual main character of 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. The man the story was written for, the man fate chose, the man who has suffered through this apocalypse more times than Kim Dokja has fingers to count. Because Yoo Jung-hyuk is a regressor. He has lived through this story before. He carries every death, every failure, every unbearable repetition in the set of his jaw and the silence behind his eyes. Kim Dokja looks at him and recognizes him the way you recognize a word in a language you taught yourself alone in a room for 10 years. That's it. That is the moment everything shifts. But recognition is not safety, and knowledge is not protection from what comes from inside the group rather than outside it. The apocalypse does not only send monsters, it sends pressure, it sends desperation. It sends the particular human calculus that whispers to people, survival is a limited resource, and generosity is how you run out of it. Betrayal in this world does not always look like a knife. Sometimes it looks like silence when you needed an ally to speak. Sometimes it looks like a door closed on your intelligence because it made someone else feel unnecessary. Sometimes it looks like companions deciding, in the cold arithmetic of crisis, that the person who sees too much and explains too little is a liability they cannot afford. Kim Dokja is left behind, not loudly, not dramatically, with the quiet, surgical detachment of people who have decided the math no longer works in his favor. He watches them go with no plea and no performance of devastation. He simply catalogs it, registers the shape of it, files it in the same place he files every piece of information that might one day be useful. He does not survive what comes next. Not this time. He dies with the accumulated weight of everything he knew and everything he never said, in a world that used him without ever quite seeing him. And the last thing in his mind is the final chapter of a story he loved more than he ever loved his own life. And then he wakes up. The subway, the phone, the notification that has not yet arrived. The city still normal outside the window, still oblivious, still moving at the pace of a world that does not yet know it is about to end. Kim Dokja sits very still for a moment. Then he looks at the chapter open on his phone and confirms what every cell in his body already understands. He is back. Chapter 1. The beginning. Not older, not stronger, not visibly changed by anything the world would be able to measure. He looks exactly like the man who was nobody. But behind his eyes, something has been reorganized. Something has been stripped of its softness and replaced with something quieter and more dangerous. Not rage, not bitterness, not even grief, though all three are present somewhere in the architecture of him. What replaced the softness is clarity. The kind of clarity that only arrives after you have watched everyone you trusted make the calculation that you were not worth keeping. He stands up, straightens his jacket, and begins. The Kim Dokja who rode this subway the first time was a man surviving out of habit, using knowledge to stay alive while still, on some level, hoping to be invited in. Hoping someone would eventually turn and look at him and understand what they had standing next to them. That Kim Dokja helped because the story told him these people mattered. Because he believed that if he was useful enough, visible enough, indispensable enough, the belonging would follow. That man is gone. The Kim Dokja on this subway does not hope. He does not offer. He does not wait to be recognized. He plans. Every piece of knowledge he carries, and he carries all of it, every scenario twist, every constellation weakness, every hidden stat mechanic, every death that is coming for people who do not know it is coming, is now arranged not as a gift. He is hoping someone will accept, but as a tool he intends to deploy with the precision of someone who has already run the numbers. He knows which allies are worth building. He knows which ones will fold. He knows which betrayals are inevitable and which ones are preventable if you control the conditions correctly. He does not enter this second life as a protagonist. He enters it as the only person who has ever read the whole story. He already knows the first scenario breaks on the 43rd minute, which means he has 42 minutes to position the people who need to be positioned. He already knows that the constellation's secretive plotter is watching him specifically, has been watching him since before the system activated, and will continue to watch him because he is an anomaly the story did not account for. He already knows Yoo Jung-hyuk will arrive in this location burned down to nothing by another regression, another round of watching people die, another cycle of being the strongest person in the room and still not being enough. He already knows that the web novel's author wrote a version of this apocalypse that was incomplete, that there are chapters after the ending, events that cascade beyond the final page, and the story Kim Dokja memorized is a map with edges that drop off into territory no one has charted. He already knows his own death. He has experienced it. He carries it not as trauma, but as data. He begins to build. Not loudly, not by announcing himself as someone who knows things. The Kim Dokja of the first life did that, and it made people nervous, and nervous people make decisions based on what unsettles them rather than what is true. This version lets people arrive at their own conclusions about him, steers them gently toward the conclusions that serve the plan, and holds the rest behind a calm face and a tendency to understate his own involvement in outcomes that save everyone's lives. He finds Yoo Jung-yuk. The encounter is nothing like the first time, because Kim Dokja no longer approaches it with the breathless excitement of meeting someone he has loved across 1,000 pages. He approaches it with the composure of a man who has already processed his awe and come out the other side into something cooler and more durable. He meets Yoo Jung-yuk's gaze, those eyes that contain absolutely zero warmth, eyes that have watched the world end enough times to have stopped flinching, eyes that look at every person they land on and run an immediate threat assessment, because that is what surviving this many regressions does to a person. And he does not look away. He does not perform deference. He does not perform anything. He simply looks back, steady and unhurried, and says something specific. Something only a reader could know. Something Yoo Jung-yuk buried so deep in his history that no one alive should be able to touch it. Yoo Jung-yuk goes very still. Kim Dokja says it the way you say the name of something that has been eating you quietly for years. Not as a weapon, not as a performance of power, just as information placed between them like a key set on a table. Take it or leave it, but you cannot pretend it was never there. And here is what Kim Dokja understands in a way that the first life never let him fully articulate. Survival is not enough. He came back not simply to not die again. He came back because the story is unfinished, and it will remain unfinished unless someone who understands the whole of it stays alive long enough to see it through. He is not the protagonist. He was never meant to be. But the protagonist cannot survive without a reader, cannot find the hidden paths, cannot identify the exits that the scenarios pretend do not exist, without someone walking beside him who has already turned every page. The apocalypse is still coming. The constellations are still watching. The world is still going to burn in all the ways Kim Dokja has already grieved. But this time, he is not nobody riding a subway hoping the story will include him. This time, he wrote himself in. If this hit, smash that like button. It tells the algorithm to show this to other manhwa fans. Subscribe to Plot Vault EN so you don't miss the next recap. And drop the name of the manhwa I should recap next in the comments.